Adrenal gland. Adrenal gland is also called the suprarenal gland. Suprarenal gland means it is above the kidney. That means it is a cap-like structure above the kidney. So there are a pair of adrenal glands each on the kidneys. So it is generally a cup-like structure, and it consists of two parts. The outer layers are called cortex, and the inner layers, the middle layers are called medulla. So it can be divided into cortex or the peripheral regions and medulla. Cortex region has three layers. One is zona glomerulosa, second one is zona fasciculata, and third one is zona reticularis. So these are the layers of cortex region. And each of these layers will secrete different hormones, and the hormones that are secreted by the cortex region are called corticoids. Corticoids is the general term given to the hormones released by the cortex region. All the three layers are involved in this. Let us see each of these layers. The hormones that are secreted by the zona glomerulosa are called mineralocorticoids. So it is a general term given by all the hormones that are secreted by the zona glomerulosa. And most important one is aldosterone. Aldosterone is the chief or important of all the mineralocorticoids. Aldosterone is responsible for maintenance of water and electrolyte balance. Generally, aldosterone is secreted due to the stimulation of angiotensin II. Whenever the blood pressure decreases, there is a increased absorption of sodium and water, and potassium and phosphates are excreted. So that means the absorption of the sodium and water increases, and in turn the potassium and phosphates are excreted, and hence it decreases the volume of body fluid. So overall, the aldosterone or the mineralocorticoids play important role in blood pressure, osmotic pressure, volume of the blood. So this is all about the hormones that are secreted by zona glomerulosa. Zona fasciculata secretes hormones called glucocorticoids. Generally, these will play a major role in carbohydrate metabolism. The most important glucocorticoid is cortisol. Cortisol is the important glucocorticoid, and it plays important role in combating the stress. So it is called stress hormone, or also called as a life-saving hormone. It regulates the cardiovascular system, and immune system, immune response. In fact, it suppresses the immune response. So, this is the importance of cortisol. Zona reticularis. Zona reticularis secretes hormones called androgens. These are the male sex hormones. And testosterone is the most important hormone of all these things, of all these androgens. Testosterone is the male sex hormone responsible for development of secondary sexual characters in males. So this is all about the cortex region. Cortex region is having three layers: zona glomerulosa, zona fasciculata, and zona reticularis. And we have already discussed the hormones that are secreted by each of these layers. Medulla is the inner part of the adrenal gland, and it secretes two important hormones, and these are epinephrine, or also called adrenaline. Another hormone is norepinephrine or noradrenaline. These hormones will help in stressful conditions. Hence, these are called fight or flight hormones. They increase the alertness, and increases the respiration, increases the heart rate or heartbeat, and piloerection means involuntary erection of hair. So that is called piloerection. So this is the importance of epinephrine and norepinephrine, and it also plays important role in carbohydrates metabolism, protein metabolism, and fats metabolism or lipid metabolism, you can say. Because of this carbohydrate, protein, and lipid metabolism, more amount of energy will be available for the stressful conditions like anxiety, pressure, anger, all these. So either we can fight against those situations, or it will make sure that we go away from such situations. So fight or flight. So hence it is called fight or flight hormone. Next gland is pancreas. Pancreas is also called mixed gland because it has both exocrine as well as endocrine functions. Hence it is called mixed gland. The exocrine part of pancreas is called acini, whereas the endocrine part are called islets of Langerhans. So these are the group of cells. Islets of Langerhans has two types of cells. One is called alpha cells and another one is called beta cells. Alpha cells secrete a hormone called glucagon. So these are small peptide hormones. Glucagon acts on glycogen and it converts it into glucose. It helps in the glycogenolysis. That means the glycogen is converted into glucose. Hence it is called the hyperglycemic hormone. Hyperglycemic means the level of glucose is increased in the blood and it almost discourages cells to utilize the glucose. So that means it always tries to maintain the levels of glucose in the body and discourages cells to utilize the glucose. Hence it is called hyperglycemic hormone. And it also impacts or influences gluconeogenesis. Gluconeogenesis means glucose is generated. That means glucose levels will be increased by influencing the non-carbohydrates also. That means glucose is produced from non-carbohydrate sources like proteins and fats also. That means proteins and fats are metabolized to give rise to glucose. Hence it is called gluconeogenesis. Gluco means glucose. Neo means new, genesis. That means glucose is generated from non-carbohydrate sources like proteins and fats. All in all, the impact is to have higher levels of glucose in the blood. Hence it is called hyperglycemic hormone. And beta cells secrete another hormone called insulin. Insulin converts the glucose into glycogen, which is against the action of glucagon. Hence, the level of glucose will be decreased in the blood. Hence, it is called hypoglycemic hormone. And it encourages the cells to take up the glucose so that the more energy is utilized, so that the levels of glucose in the blood will be decreased. So both the glucagon and the insulin try to influence the levels of glucose in the blood. And persistent rise of glucose in the blood leads to a condition called diabetic mellitus. That means more amount of glucose will be in the blood. Hence we call it as a diabetic mellitus. So this is all about the hormones of pancreas. Glucagon and insulin, each acting against each other. One converts the glycogen into glucose, hence it is called hyperglycemic. Another converts the glucose into glycogen, hence it is called the hypoglycemic. That means it readily decreases the level of glucose in the blood. And is testis. Testis is the male gonad that is responsible for the production of secondary sexual characters in males. There are a pair of testes in the scrotal sacs, in the scrotal sac that is outside the abdomen. Testosterone is the hormone that is released by the testis. The Leydig cells or interstitial cells secrete this hormone, and this hormone is responsible for the development of sex organs like epididymis, seminal vesicles, prostate gland and urethra, etc. And it is also responsible for growth of facial hair, axial hair and masculine body. So masculine body means the well built muscles that accumulates a lot of proteins and fats. It encourages the protein synthesis and low pitch of voice. So all these are the important characters that are developed by the testosterone, and all these are related to the development of secondary sexual characters in case of males. And testosterone is also responsible for aggressiveness. Aggressiveness of the males can be attributed to the testosterone. So this is about the testosterone. Next one is ovaries. A pair of ovaries are present in the abdomen, or in fact inside the abdomen, and these are the female gonads. And these will give ovum. The production of ovum is called ovulation. In fact, the ovary, in the cross section, we can see various development stages called Graafian follicles. So this is the ovary, LS of ovary. We can see various follicles, and inside this Graafian follicle the egg or the ovum develops, and this is the ovulation by the rupture of graphene follicles. And these can also be termed as the testes as well as the ovaries can be termed as cytogenic, because they will produce the gametocytes or the ovum and some hormones like estrogen and progesterone. So these estrogen and progesterone are the two hormones secreted by the ovaries. Cytogenic in the sense that they will produce certain gametes like ovum in case of ovaries and spermatocytes in case of the testes. So the graphene follicles will release the ovum, and this graphene follicle is converted into a body called corpus luteum. This corpus luteum is also called yellow body. The graphene follicles will release this hormone called estrogen, and estrogen is responsible for development of secondary sexual characters in females like development of mammary glands and other secondary sexual characters like high pitch voice, etc. And corpus luteum, which is the another form of graphene follicle, that means graphene follicle after the release of ovum converted into a body, yellow body called corpus luteum. In fact, this corpus luteum also acts as an endocrine gland, a temporary endocrine gland, and it secretes the hormone called progesterone. Progesterone is responsible for maintaining the pregnancy, or it prepares the uterus, the site where the embryo is attached. It prepares the uterus for the next stage of the pregnancy, and it also responsible for uterus is prepared for the developing embryo. And it is responsible for the secretion of milk from the mammary glands. So this is all about the ovaries. So ovaries will secrete two important hormones. One is estrogen and another one is progesterone. Estrogen is responsible for secondary sexual characters development in case of females, and progesterone is responsible for development of uterus for the continuation of pregnancy and also for the secretion of milk. And it also responsible for non-contraction of muscles of uterus, because to continue the pregnancy. Remember, in case of oxytocin, it is responsible for the contraction of the uterus muscles, but the progesterone is responsible for non-contraction of the uterus muscles. So we have discussed about the endocrine glands that secreted so many hormones, but not all that hormones are secreted by the endocrine glands itself. There are some other parts of the body which are non-endocrine in nature, and these non-endocrine So there are some other non-endocrine glands or non-endocrine tissues which also secrete certain hormones, and they are: 1, heart. Heart secretes a hormone called atrial natriuretic factor. Or we can say ANF, and also called atrial natriuretic peptide or ANP. The action of atrial natriuretic peptide is to decrease the blood pressure by dilation of blood vessels. And it also responsible for the decrease of absorption of sodium by renal tubules. So because of this also the blood pressure is decreased. So this is about the atrial natriuretic factor or atrial natriuretic peptide that is secreted by the heart, and it decreases the blood pressure by dilating blood vessels and also by decreasing the absorption of sodium by the renal tubules. So this is all about the ANF secreted by the heart. Erythropoietin is responsible for the production of RBC or red blood cells. In fact, we know that RBC will be produced by the cells of the bone marrow. In the bone marrow, there are certain stem cells which are differentiated to give the RBC. So these cells are erythroid progenitor cells which are differentiated to become the RBC, and this erythropoietin actually influences this erythroid progenitor cells in the differentiation of the RBC. So this is all about the erythropoietin hormone that is produced by the kidney. Gastrointestinal tract, or simply we can say it GIT, also responsible for production of certain hormones which play important role in digestion. One is gastrin. Gastrin acts on the gastric glands. We know that gastric glands are present in the stomach region and they produce gastric juice. And this gastric juice consists of hydrochloric acid and pepsinogen. The gastrin actually influences this gastric glands to produce hydrochloric acid as well as pepsinogen. And second one is secretin. It is produced by the duodenal mucosa. In fact, secretin will influence the pancreas to secrete water and bicarbonate ions in its juice. So this is the importance of secretin. Third one is cholesterol. Or we can say it CCK. It is also known as pancreogymin. It is also produced by the duodenum in response to the fats in chyme. It influences the pancreas to secrete more amount of enzymes in its pancreatic juice. And fourth one is growth factors. So growth factors are the hormones secreted by the cells that are responsible for the repair or regeneration of the cells. So these are the 4 important hormones that are secreted by non-endocrine glands or the tissues. So in this class we have discussed about some important glands, and we will continue in the next